What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the Dog Benfica Podcast, episode number 174. There's a little echo, Steve.
Echo. I will fix that.
On tonight's podcast, we will look back at the Ferreira game. We will look ahead to Atletico Madrid Champions League game, match day 2 for Benfica. Benfica already in Madrid. And Uniao da Madeira, which comes up this weekend for the league. Benfica is still looking for their first win away in the Portuguese Championship. So let's, with me tonight, Steve Santos.
What's going on, Alfredo? Let's hope that this weekend is the first away win in Madeira, because if not, that will be something to worry about. But until then, let's stay to the task at hand. Champions League is first.
Yeah, we're actually waiting for Mr. Oliveira to jump in. We're waiting for him to call in and jump in as always. So I guess we'll get this started before, until Oliveira comes in.
And rudely interrupts.
And rudely interrupts, like he so much likes to do. So let's get right into this Ferreira game. Benfica was back at Estadio da Luz, hosted Ferreira this past weekend. I'll give you the lineup real quick. Júlio César, Semedo, Luizão, Jardel, and Eliseu across the back. Almeida and Samaris in the middle. Guedes and Gaetan on the wings. Jonas and Mitroglou up front. Steve, we always talk about the way we went to the Dragão and how Rui Vitoria chose to go with Almeida, perhaps to combat a more powerful midfield. But we were back against Ferreira at home. Surprised at all that Almeida was in the middle with Samaris?
I have to say no. I mean, we all, well, except for Chris, most of us thought that although the move looked like a negative move on paper, putting a more defensive player next to Samaris, it seemed to have worked pretty well. I think that the switch to an actual double pivot in the midfield, where you have two guys that are doing a lot of the same roles, just on slightly different ends of the pitch. You could see that's really where Vitoria is taking this team. So looking at that, I think Almeida might be the best fit for it. I mean, it doesn't look like supporting the front men as a number 8 is one of Rui Vitoria's worries right now. It looks like right now the midfield, he's just looking for a very solid base that he can kind of build the front four in front of them off of. And really, with Almeida, you have a very tactically sound player that will always, like we say, week in, week out, he'll always give you what you ask of him. And I'm not surprised at all that he got another start, because really he deserved it. He was that good against Porto. He played quite well against Passos as well. I mean, he showed a couple pieces of skill that I didn't even know he had in his locker. So it's a deserved call-up at this point, I'd say.
Here's the thing, Steve. Do you think the game plan is really to go with a double pivot, or you think that it will progressively change into where Samaris is going to become an 8, which apparently was his natural position before he got to Benfica?
It's interesting if that's what's going to come out of it, because there's not really any signs of that. I mean, if anything, the guy who seemed to venture a little bit more forward out of the two, it was Almeida. Does Samaris have that in him to play number 8? I don't know. It's a question we've always brought up quite often around here. Sometimes he looks like he doesn't have the final pass that you would need to play 8. I mean, he's a good athlete. He's got pretty good feet, but it seems like when you need him to make that killer ball or to make that little piece of skill outside the box, it doesn't happen for him. So I don't know. I'm honestly thinking that from what I'm seeing right now, it looks like it definitely is us gravitating more towards a double pivot, and anything more creative and building play is going to be more tacked onto Jonas. I think Jonas is going to have more of a say in the build-up play than he did last year. I mean, if you want to say Jonas was always pretty free to do what he wanted last year, that is the case. But I think now it's going to be more part of a prerequisite. It's going to be something that Vitoria is really going to be asking him to do, game in, game out, is to try to build up the play from the midfield and involve his other his teammates around him. I think that's going to be the new thing that we see very often from Jonas now.
Yeah, when we talk about Jonas, we controlled most of the possession for the first half, but if it hadn't been for Jonas with that magic goal, we wouldn't have been able to get on the scoreboard. We got a lot of the possession, but we were creating some chances, but nothing really that you could say like clear chances.
No, and that leads me to just a little bit of a rant on the way we've been playing football lately, and I think we're leaving it up to too many chances with just these crosses into the box and whatnot. I was very glad to see that the goal didn't come from something like that. It was a very fantastic piece of skill from Jonas. But if you listen to Jonas, sorry, I read the interview. I'm not exactly sure where he said it, but he gave credit where credit was due, and he said a lot of the goal came from the movement that Mitroglou did in front of me. He opened up a door for me to be able to take that shot. So
yeah.
It's hopefully this is signs of things to come where we're going to play a little bit more football through the middle, try to really get at teams instead of this try to go 1v1 on the flanks and crossing for Mitroglou, who I'd have to say didn't have a very good match to say the least. I don't think he was that great
compared to how he's been playing. I don't think so. But I think then I read somewhere that there's a lot of people that find that he does a lot. He's doing a lot of work off the ball, and that was one prime example where he pulled the defender and opened up the way. He also had a ball. I think it was from. I'm trying to think who passed him the ball through, and he almost dribbled the keeper, and then he couldn't be fast enough to put the ball past the keeper. I think maybe Gaitan was it that fed him, or maybe it was Samaris. I'm not really sure. Or it could have been Jonas. I don't know.
I don't remember the play, to be honest.
But yeah, he had a good chance. But he knows the pressure is on him. He's got Jimenez breathing down his neck. And I actually thought when Jimenez came in, I thought he played pretty well. The guy looks hungry, chased after the ball, seems to have a very good work rate. The feet, but I have yet to see a little bit more. Maybe I need to see a little bit more from him. But this feet definitely look a little better than Mitroglou. Maybe Mitroglou is a little bit more physical than Jimenez. But I got to see a little bit more.
I think Mitroglou's got probably a little bit better feet than most people will give him credit for, just because he is so physical. But he seems to have some pretty decent touch. I think he just needs to find his feet in front of goal. I know he's scored quite a few already. So I think 3 or 4 goals already. But I think he just needs to kind of get that calmness in front of goal, and he'll be okay. But with Jimenez, you have a lot of. He just seems a lot more aggressive. He wants to be in the game a lot more. I don't know if for now I think Mitroglou's got the spot nailed down, but any more performances where it looks like things aren't going to go his way, he's going to have to keep an eye out, because Jimenez is going to be right on him.
Yeah. And, decent first half. Of course, we go into the locker rooms with that lead goal from Jonas. But, Steve, coming out of the second half, we came out quite flat in the second half, and I had no idea what was going on with that team. And it almost seemed like Passos Ferreira was going to grab a goal and it was going to make our life harder.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I believe it was in the press conference after the game, Georges Simon said, we were in the game up until the second goal, which he had every right to say so. I mean, the first maybe 20 minutes of the second half, we were extremely flat. It looked like we were second to every ball. We couldn't really connect any passing. I think it was when Jimenez actually came on himself is when we started to look a little bit better. He injected a little bit of that aggressiveness that we needed, because it was there for the taking for Passos to tie it up at that point, because we looked extremely flat. That's what it comes down to. It looked like it was a team that wasn't really sure of how to kill off the game, or thought maybe the game was killed. I don't know, but I'm glad that Rui Vitoria switched things up, brought in a guy who is hungry, who really wants to get some more minutes, and it showed.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely hungry. So we were fortunate enough to be able to sustain that pressure, or that, I don't want to say barrage, because I think barrage is probably a
That's,
misinterpretation.
yeah.
But Passos Ferreira came out, really didn't have anything to lose. I think they just came out and played their game. They weren't shy at all, and really they pushed us against the ropes for a little bit there. And then again, the individual talent of our team right now is something that's bailing us out. Is this normal for this early in the season, that the individual talents is above more of a team play?
No, I would say it's quite normal. I mean, we're still trying to figure out the ins and outs of Rui Vitoria's system. Us as fans are trying to figure it out. The players are trying to figure out as well. Um, they're learning the new processes that they have to learn and whatnot. So it's only understandable that it's going to be more often than not a little bit of individual brilliance that gets us the goals than it is a teamwork type move. Um, Talking about goals though, last week we were talking a little bit about Gonçalo Guedes and how he was probably missing a little bit of that extra bit in the final third, and I thought he was quite good. Uh, good composure for the finish, and good composure for the assist for Jonas's goal.
Yeah, but he had a horrible start of the second half. He
But
seemed a
so
little
did
bit
everybody
unsettled.
else. He did. He
And
did.
I think that the TV commentators were saying that he came up to the sideline and Rui Vitoria had a talk with him, and apparently he settled down. The report was, and actually Rui Vitoria was asked by the media what he had said to Guedes, and what he said was that he had Guedes to choose wisely what he was going to do with the ball, to not rush as much, and to use a better criteria on when making decisions. And I think that settled the kid. And thankfully he got his first goal, and maybe that's a huge morale boost for an 18-year-old that really all the pressure on him is to prove himself, to prove that he could play and start for this team really right now for Gonçalves.
Yeah. That's really what it comes down to. He's got to feel the pressure himself, and hopefully the goal will loosen him up. And you know what? We've always said that it looks like he's playing a little bit scared. He's kind of scared to go 1v1 on people. Maybe this will free up that fear and allow him to go forward and attack people a little bit more.
So we get the 3 points, while Porto had tied on Friday, so they dropped 2 points there. We were able to get 2 points on Porto, and then Sporting played after us, and we got 2 points on Sporting. So right now we're, instead of being four behind the leaders, we're actually two behind the
Too.
leaders.
Yeah, it
So
was a
it's
great
it's a
weekend.
great thing. And Steve, we keep on talking that the teams are getting better and they're improving, and it's going to be tough, but who's expecting these teams to lose points? It just shows you that the Portuguese league keeps on getting more competitive as it goes, and it also speaks lots for the talent of Portuguese coaching that's out there. I know that the guy from Moreirense has been spoken about as a very good coach for a while. Petit is Petit. I mean, for me, he doesn't really have a lot of coaching credentials, but if the team could subscribe to his mentality, it's going to be a hard team to beat.
For sure. I think even George Simon has gotten a lot of good press. I was quite impressed with the way Passos set up against us. I mean, teams a lot of times come to the luge and they'll just sit all 10 players behind the ball and never really explore a counterattack until it's basically there for the taking. Passos, when they got the ball, they tried to play football. I mean, they were a team that obviously knows its limitations, but wasn't really scared of Benfica. They tried to play within themselves. So there is good coaches out there. There is a more competitive league this year, I think. But to be absolutely honest, one of the main reasons I think the league is a little bit more competitive is I think there's been a drop in quality of in the big three. Between us and Porto and even Sporting, I don't think Sporting's probably at the same level, maybe even a little bit better than they have been in the past few years. But I'd have to say that Benfica and Porto look a little bit weaker.
Yeah. And do you think that maybe in the beginning of the season, all guys still have motivation to play, while
That's true.
at the end of the season, where maybe salaries are not getting paid?
Salaries aren't getting paid. The league table doesn't look as enticing as it did at one point. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of other reasons.
A couple of factors. So an awesome 3 points at the lose, as we expected, against the Passos Ferreira. That's going to be a very hard team for a lot of teams. As a matter of fact, Passos Ferreira hadn't lost away from home yet, or hadn't lost away from home, right? Why did I say that right? I
I'm
think so.
I'm pretty sure you're
hadn't
right.
hadn't lost away, and so that was a tough game. They're going to give people a very hard game whenever they play them, whether it's going to be a Material or it's going to be away, or with the big teams, whatever. But 3 important points, that was the most important thing, and then the fact that both Porto and Sporting dropped points, that was even better. So we're right in the thick of it. We're in the hunt of it, and now I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I'm hoping that Chris could join us shortly here, but I'm going to jump ahead to the União da Madeira preview, which comes up this Sunday, October 4th, 4 p.m. local in the island of Madeira. I think that's for you guys in the east coast of the U.S., set your alarms, because if you had a good night out on Saturday night, you might not wake up for that one. So that comes up around what, 11 o'clock in the morning. Currently, União da Madeira is 14th, 6 points from 1 win, 3 losses, and 3 ties. Last time Benfica played União da Madeira was back in the 94-95 season. So it's been quite some time since União da Madeira has been in the first division. So we see him now. Historically, 12 games between the two teams, 12 wins for Benfica. Of course, no wins for União da Madeira. And Benfica has outscored União da Madeira in those 12 matches 37-8. The referee for this game is Cosme Machado, the Portuguese Mr. Clean, if you will. He's part of the Associação de Futebol de Braga, and he's 39 years old. Not an international referee. Decent referee from what I can remember. I don't know. I can't remember really nothing negative about him, but I'm sure that they've all done their mistakes. Steve, our first away, we're looking for our first win away at the Madeira, where typically we have a good fan base of fans that will go to the game.
Yeah, against a team that is, from the looks of things, probably destined to go back down to the second division. A team that's never won versus Benfica, so it's a must-win game against one of the smaller teams in the league. It is what it is. We got to go out there and really try to impose our game on them, even if the pitch is a bit small. If I remember correctly, the field at União da Madeira, you could actually watch the match from a road, slightly higher than the field itself, which is quite interesting. It's got to be a game where you can't take anything for granted and really play your football and put it away early so that things don't get nervous towards the end. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, we've given up enough points already away. It's time to start winning away, and because at home we already know we're going to be strong at home, and we're always going to have the probability, or the odds is going to be for us at home, but away especially against these little teams that get up to play a team like Benfica. They know they're going to be on TV. The motivation doesn't need to be imposed by the coaches throughout the week. They know what they need to do, and they'll come out and play. So it's going to be tough. The team is also coached by Norton Match. He has connection to Benfica. At one point, he was one of the coaches for the formation, if I'm not mistaken. He was
B-team coach.
Yeah, he was also a B-team coach in the first incarnation of the B teams, not this newest one. He was the B-team coach. So it's a guy that's very familiar with the Benfica and Benfica players and Benfica coaching staff. So it'll be a tough match for Benfica, and depending how we do against Atletico Madrid midweek, we'll see. I'll hope that this doesn't end up being a trap game, since União da Madeira is actually in 12th place. We got to find the motivation, and now that we got that within 2 points of the leaders, we need to keep winning to keep pace with them. So that's it. I think that it won't be an easy game like everybody expects, but I think that if we play the game that we're capable, I think that we'll overcome União da Madeira, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason for us not to at this rate.
All right. And we're going to take a short break here, actually, for the halftime headlines. And also, there was a little interview. I was able to catch up with Rafael Ramos. If you remember, Rafael Ramos was a Benfica player that came to Orlando to play in the MLS, and they were in town to play the Red Bulls, and I had a chance to catch up with him, and I had a few words with him, and I hope that you enjoyed the interview. So we're going to take a short break. You'll hear the Rafael Ramos interview, and also Nelson's halftime headlines. If you're watching this live, of course, you're not going to hear that, but you'll hear the audio version. So we'll be right back. All right, and we're back for the second half of the Benfica podcast. Steve Santos and Alfredo with you, episode number 174. We just discussed the Passos Ferreira game, and we also looked ahead to the Uniao da Madeira game. And now the big happening of the week, Steve, match day 2 comes up tomorrow, Wednesday, against Atletico Madrid out at the Calderon in Madrid. And I was looking up some stats and doing some research, and Atletico Madrid have won 21 of their 24 matches at the Calderon in Champions League play. That's quite impressive.
It's impressive. It's really a very impressive stadium. If you follow Spanish football, it's one of the more rowdy atmospheres that you're going to find in the league. Probably the Sevilla teams have a similar atmosphere, but the Atletico fans are really a rowdy bunch. Atletico's really come into their own within the past few years with the arrival of Simeone, so it doesn't surprise me at all, those numbers at this point.
Yeah, and Benfica in this year and this season has yet to score a game away. So the woes from the domestic competition hopefully don't carry on to the Champions League. Of course, we've played the Stun and we played them at home, but we've yet to score a game away. Steve, is that worrisome? A goal away? Is that worrisome for you that we haven't scored? What is this now? Like six games that we've played, or 5 games?
It's something you definitely have to worry about. That being said, if we came back from the Calderon without scoring a goal, I would not be that worried. Atletico's a fantastic team. That's a difficult stadium to go to. One of Atletico's main strengths is they're very difficult to beat. They're very difficult to score against. Very compact team, with a team that fights for every ball. I would not be surprised at all if we don't get a goal there, and I wouldn't even put too much emphasis on it because it's almost like an expected outcome.
Yeah, and of course, there's several ties between Benfica and Atletico Madrid. Of course, several players have switched sides. Jimenez was at Atletico. Silvio is still on loan from Atletico. Pizzi was at Atletico. We finally bought his pass. And Salvio, of course, was from Atletico, got lent to Benfica, then returned to Atletico. Then Benfica bought his pass. Of course, on the other side, Oblak, Thiago, or Cicada are some of the guys that have ties with us. But Steve, talk to us about a little bit about the strengths of this Athletic team.
I mean, their attitude is just very impressive. I think they're a team that's built in the image of the coach. If anybody remembers Simeone as a player, he was really a diehard, a guy who would leave everything on the pitch. Doesn't leave anything for granted. He won't let you win any ball. It's just like immense the type of attitude that him and his team have now. If you watch him on the sideline, sometimes he's just as entertaining as what's going on the pitch. That's how much passion the man has. One of their extreme strengths, though, is set pieces. I mean, I'm awful at numbers, and I really don't like to research stats because they kind of bore me. But I know they had some insane record of goals scored from set pieces last year. Maybe I'll try to look for it later and tweet it for you guys. But that's something that we're going to have to be very careful with. Little cheap fouls around the box or just inside the half could be very, very problematic against a team like Atletico. But there's things that's happening at Atletico this year that may lead us to maybe question a little bit of their attitude. I mean, it seems like Simeone as a player was also a guy who was more known for his tackling ability and for his hard-nosed approach, but he lacked a little bit of that silk. And right now it seems like they went out and got a whole bunch of players that would provide them with this silk. And I think now Simeone might even have a little bit too much variety, too many options to choose from. A guy who always liked to play his football kind of in a way where he lets the other team have the ball and he pounces on their mistakes and doesn't let them really create anything. So instead of controlling the match with the ball at their feet or with technique, they were a team that were more like controlling the opposition and pouncing when they had their opportunities. This year, it seems like with the players that they've contracted, they're looking for an approach where they can control games a little bit better. It looks like they're trying to stray away from using a 4-4-2 where their four midfielders were four guys who were really players that would probably be more happy to play in the middle than on the flank. So all four guys would play in the middle instead of the flanks. You'd have Koke on one side and Saul or maybe Oliver on the other side. These are all guys who are perfectly happy playing in the middle of the pitch. This year, it looks like they're trying to experiment with different types of players. I mean, they've played a lot of 4-3-3 coming off the bench. You'll see Correa, who I think we were linked to at one point actually, and Griezmann play on one flank. It's a different type of game that they're going for. So, will this vast amount of options really cloud Simeone's judgment and make him forget about what really got him to where he is at now? I mean, what got him to where he's at is that very robust style that they had. Thiago mentioned in an interview today or yesterday where they hadn't forgotten it, but I don't know. I watched the match versus Villarreal and I found like they were missing a little bit of that hard-nosed edge to them. They looked a little flat. Villarreal passed circles around them for most of the match, so it's interesting. We'll see what happens, but they have a lot of options in playing us in different ways. So maybe that might turn a difficult card for Rui Vitoria, because it's going to be hard for him to try to predict the way Simeone is going to approach the match. But it may also make it difficult for Simeone himself, him having so many different ways of playing the game.
Yeah, both teams coming off, both Benfica and Atletico coming off wins in match day 1. So this is kind of either the winner is going to take the lead of the group. It's a very tough game, as I've said, at the Calderon, and Benfica will have a very hard time. Steve, we got Jimenez, and Jimenez' situation is quite unique to some of the other guys that are Benfica right now that have ties to Atletico. Jimenez was actually owned by Atletico at one point. I don't know if Atletico still owns some of his pass, but last year he was there and basically he had no minutes whatsoever. Do you think that Rui Vitoria should play with the fact that Jimenez is going to have extra motivation to play against his former team, a team that didn't accept him, against a coach that didn't feel he was good enough to play? Do you think Rui Vitoria should exploit that extra motivation Jimenez will have?
I think he should, and I think he will. The question is, from what point in the match? There's a lot of questions being asked whether or not we're actually going to play with two front men up front, with Jonas and Mitroglou, or Jonas and Jimenez. So that's really the way you have to look at it at this point. I'm next to positive Jimenez is going to get some minutes in this match to be able to use some of that aggression that he has towards Atletico and towards Simeone. I would be very surprised if he doesn't play a minute. I'm just interested to see how we actually approach the match from the start. Will we see Jonas up front on his own and maybe add a third man in the midfield? Perhaps Talisca, perhaps Pizzi. It's interesting. That's the most interesting part for me is how we're going to approach that part of the game.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head against around that. Also, on one hand, I hope that Rui Vitoria stays true to what his beliefs are and to what his game plans and his game style has been so far, and not change too much in order to defend against Atletico's strengths. Don't get me wrong, you still have to defend against Atletico's strengths, but I think I would much rather see Rui Vitória be truer to what how he has played so far, because I think that if we go and play to combat Atletico's strengths, I think we're going to end up getting beat really bad. I think that if we go and play our normal style, I think we have a very good chance of coming out of there with at least a tie.
Yeah, the good thing about our style of play is that right now it doesn't look like Rui Vitória likes to take a lot of risks. I mean, the double pivot is one thing. The way we're kind of playing a little bit more defensively in the midfield area itself. We're not using a more attacking player at the 8. So the fact that that kind of is what it looks like Rui Vitória is trying to do, it's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think that the fact that that basically so far this team, Benfica's team, is based on individual strength. I think that putting Jonas up front would be a grave mistake, because I think that Atletico could easily dry Jonas if Jonas is by himself up front.
I agree with you. I think they could dry him up just the way we normally play because they don't leave much room in between the defensive line and the midfield line, and that's the area that Jonas likes to play in. So to leave him there stranded is definitely not a good idea. But I don't know. To be absolutely honest, Alfredo, I do not like the idea of matching them for shape. Really, um, I think I think there's a whole bunch of talk saying that they're going to play 4-3-3, but I'm pretty sure they're going to play their usual 4-4-2, and just instead of using their four central midfielders as usual, they're going to use Carrasco on one flank and then use three central type midfielders for the rest of it. So if we match them for shape, we're not going to have any advantage towards them in any area of the pitch, and I would like to have at least an extra guy in midfield against them just because of how strong they are. Really, I know it's slightly against the way we like to play football, but it's Atletico Madrid. I mean, they were runners up in the Champions League 2 years ago. They were uh, La Liga winners against a very good Barcelona and a very good Real Madrid. I mean, it's a strong side. To be brash and go there and try to play exactly the way we want to play football is asking a lot too. So
Yeah.
I think we may have to adapt a little bit, and if that means Jonas kind of really sacrificing himself a little bit, it might be the only way we could do it. To be honest, it's the only way that I could look at it. I can't. I just don't see us playing from the start 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1, however you want to call it.
Yeah, I just think that in both the run up to Sporting and Porto, we've said here, well, maybe we need an extra midfield guy to defend against the superiority in numbers that both Porto and Sporting had, and Rui Vitoria went at him with just two pivots, and well, Sporting didn't do so well but that was the first game of the season. But I thought we did fairly well against Porto. I know we're talking about an opponent of a different dimension. That's probably, if they were in our league, they'll probably easily first place without a doubt. But
Right.
I still think that I think the key in this game is going to be us remaining true to our style and not so much go and play a game to defend against Atletico Madrid. I know that they got their weapons and they got their options, but I think that if we adapt too much and if we get away too much about what the identity that's now forming from this team, I think it's going to hurt us more than anything else.
It's a valid point. It's absolutely a valid point. It'll be interesting to see what actually happens. Regardless of the result, this is going to be an extreme lesson for Rui Vitoria. I mean, this is to date, probably the most difficult match he's been at the helm for us. I mean, we played Porto, we played Sporting. Those are more heated rivalries, just because of the history of the clubs in Portugal. But in terms of facing an established side like Simeone's Atletico, he hasn't had anything like this yet, and this is going to be a big test for him. I mean, he could come out of this match losing 1 or even 2-0 with a lot of positives if he's able to implement his methods and to have a say in the match. So it's going to be a very interesting match regardless.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I think that what's expected really is a loss.
Yeah.
If you looking at two teams on paper, you got a team with a budget like Atletico Madrid. You probably got the third. I think you sent me some numbers on some budgets of La Liga teams. I think they were third place, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So you're looking at teams from a complete different galaxy when it comes to budgets. Of course, Simeone has had experience. The caliber of players, I think that Torres is looking for is 100th game or 100th goal or something for Atletico Madrid, some bullshit like that. So I'm not really sure what's going on, but they got Griezmann, and look, they're chock full of talent, and obviously they're a team that you could say, and aside from Neil and other guys, you could say that Atletico Madrid is perhaps a team from a different league other than ours, but.
For sure.
I think that if we play the type of game that we're supposed to be playing, if Gaetan is at his best, I think if Jonas is able to get out of the defensive web that Atletico Madrid is gonna set up for them, I think that we do well. I am concerned about Gonçalo Guedes and Nelson Smith. So far, they have proven me right with what they've done. They've exceeded my expectations, but we're talking about Champions League here. We're talking about a game in a stadium whose atmosphere is going to be heated. You're going to be talking about guys getting goosebumps from listening to the Champions League. You're also looking at maybe Gonçalo Guedes and Nelson Smith have played the PlayStation, and they've played with Atletico Madrid at one point. So, I mean, for these kids, and especially Gonçalo Guedes is only 18 years old, and don't get me wrong, I think the kid has a strong character and he can overcome this nervousness, and so does Semedo. But this is a huge game for those two kids in that right side of Benfica.
Definitely, and that's one of the reasons that leads me to believe that this whole talk of 4-3-3 with two more mobile wingers in Correa and Griezmann on either side of Jackson, I think it's a farce. I think that they're going to use Carrasco, who is a very vertical and technical winger that used to play at Monaco last year, and they'll put him on top of Semedo and see what kind of mistakes he's going to make. I don't think they're going to use more players that are more technique based and they want to come inside and play 1-2s. I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think if they're going to try to stay true to what has worked for them for the most part and just add a little something, which will be that more direct winger on the left. So we'll have to keep an eye out for it, but that's my prediction.
Yeah, I think that tie is a good result. A loss wouldn't. It's a bad result on paper, but it's kind of expected. And I think that if we get a tie, would be great, and it would definitely put us on a different level. And then having to play Galatasaray, and Galatasaray already have lost to Atletico Madrid home. I think that if we could get points from Atletico Madrid, I think it would be a great edge to have on Galatasaray. So we'll see. The game comes up tomorrow on Wednesday at 7:45 local time. I think it's 2:45 here in the States, if you're keeping track of that. East Coast. And hopefully it'll be a good game. And I think that the years that that JJ has been at the helm, I don't think Benfica has represented themselves well in the Champions League. I don't even want to talk about the Europa League because that's kind of like a secondary competition. But I think that Benfica has an image to preserve in the Champions League, and I think that the past 6 years with JJ, I think that image that JJ and that team that hasn't really been a true image of the a club of Benfica's magnitude. So I hope that this year, regardless of being Rui Vitoria's first year and being maybe a transition year, I think that if the team goes and plays and has a good effort, I think, albeit losing, I think that it's important that the team plays and honors the club's name in this competition.
Yeah, I don't want to see any of the obscure lineups that we've seen from JJ last year, where it might have came from higher up in the club, but I just don't want to see it. I want to see an 11 that's as close to what we've been seeing lately as possible. How's that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that that a team that goes to Atletico Madrid and kind of plays on a defensive is not our image. I think that we should enter every game to win, and I think that there was some of Vitoria's speech in his presser that they weren't going to buy the result. They weren't going to Madrid to buy the result. They were going to go to win it, and I think that's the right attitude. The right attitude, and I hope that he's passing that along to the players because we need to get back to the standard that we've had with Benfica in European competitions, albeit playing with teams that have big salaries and bigger investors behind them and bigger budgets. I think that we have an image that we need to upkeep in Europe, and so I hope that Rui Vitoria is true to that.
Definitely.
So that's pretty much it for the Champions League. One last thing, I was hoping that Cristiano would be here because I wanted to discuss this with him. The thing about Taraabt, of course, the news came out. I think that the Correio da Manhã was the first one to report it on Saturday on Monday morning that Taraabt had been caught out late at night, 3:30 in the morning. I think it's somewhere in Lisbon. Not sure. Then a couple media outlets picked up this story. Benfica never denied, and today in the press conference, Rui Vitoria announced that Taraabt was under disciplinary action. Steve, nothing new here.
I don't know. I hate to say I told you so, but I did. I didn't like the fact that we went after this guy who had so much baggage attached to him. Why a club like Benfica needs to invest in a player that has proved time and time again to be a poor professional. Why did we go out and do that was beyond me. There is talk of us being able to basically get rid of him with just cause, which would be ideal, and it would definitely be a show of strength, I think, from Vitoria and from the club, saying, you know what, you messed around. I don't care what kind of talent there is in your feet. I don't care where you've been before. That just doesn't fly here. And see you later. Yeah. So I hope that's the way things go. I'm never going to doubt the man's technical ability. I was never my stance on this. My stance was just you do not need players like that in your squad. I mean, a guy who's that ill-disciplined, it will only trickle down into the rest of the squad. I mean, there was worries that Carcelo was kind of picking up on the same kind of vibe, and you don't want that. I mean, Carcelo's looking at a fresh start. I don't think he's really had many issues with discipline. I think he might have struggled in Russia, but I don't think it was because of going out at night and whatnot. That being said, on a positive note, it looks like Carcelo is working his way back into the squad, which is nice.
Yeah, and coming to a team that in probably, if you want to call it a secondary league, That's not one of the top leagues in Europe with the Portuguese league. Maybe Taraabt thought that the opportunity was there. I'm happy that Benfica is showing a heavy hand on this. I also hope that with the history that Taraabt had throughout his recent past and his recent misadventures in other clubs, I would hope that Benfica had some clauses in a contract that would allow Benfica to rescind the contract with Taraabt if something like this were to be a problem. Maybe there's a three-strike ruling or clause in his contract, but I think that somebody was. I'm not sure when he assigned them to. Was it for 5 years, Steve? Do you know?
I can't remember the contract details, but I'm
I
pretty
thought
sure.
that Peter had said that we had signed them to 2020, or somebody else on Twitter had signed them to 2020. It's an awful long time to be stuck with the guy that is looking like he's going to be the cancer that we thought he was going to be in this team.
Definitely, which is why I think the proof of him breaking curfew will be an easy out on that. I think I don't even know if it's a three strikes you're out. From what I've been reading, I think Benfica has a strict 11 p.m. curfew on match days, and he was caught at 3:30 in the morning at a club. It's quite easy. It's an easy out at this point.
Yeah, that's not getting a flat tire and having to change it and being an hour late to the curfew. And we don't know, and we often talk about it here that the Muslims can't drink, but maybe he's just hanging out with some belly dancers. Who knows? So it's entirely possible. I don't know. Maybe he's eating some pita bread with some chorizo. Oh wait, chorizo, they can't eat that either. So it's a tricky situation. And I mean, going from a guy who arrived at the club overweight and has been working hard to be able to be part of the coach's options, and all of a sudden having this setback that he created for himself. I mean, come on, you got to be a little smarter than that, man. But of course, a lot of football players are not known for what they have in the head, but rather what they have on their feet. So maybe that's Taraabt's case. So who knows what's going on, but definitely not something that people wanted to hear about Taraabt. Bad news for him.
Bad news, but expected.
Yeah. And Chris thought that he was going to be the one that was going to make this team click. And now all of a sudden, who knows? He might be a good 3 weeks without play. Who knows? We're not really sure what the process entails or what the disciplinary rules are for Benfica when a guy breaks these type of rules. I know that usually there's a heavy fine associated with it, but there's also, other consequences. And these guys know and they're aware of these consequences. So it's quite a dumb move, but, expected from a guy like this.
Alfredo, my poor memory, maybe you remember, Talisca got caught playing a futsal game, which was also outside of the rules at the club. Yeah. I believe he missed a match or two.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was. I'm not sure if that was that last year or this year.
Yeah, that was last year with Jesus. I just don't remember what the exact outcome was. I'm sure one of our listeners will, though.
Yeah, I remember that story, but. It's definitely. I mean, it's a rule that's broken, but I think that being out at night is much a much grave rule breaker than anything else. I think. I don't know. That's serious.
Yeah, it's always a lack of respect for the rules. It's a show of
disrespect for the club,
of that, and of like a playboy lifestyle, which quote unquote footballers shouldn't have, which we all know is probably a little bit further from the truth than what we all think. But regardless, it's Taraabt. It was expected. If we could get rid of him, just from like Sergio saying, like Bruno Carvalho tried to get rid of Mark Silva for just cause. If we can do that, I'd be extremely happy at this point, because I never wanted to get him to begin with. So if that's what were to happen now, I'd be quite content.
Yeah, So we'll see. Sergio, I don't think that he hangs out with Shikovala from Sport. I think Shikovala, last seen Shikovala is when he's in Egypt,
In Egypt,
playing in
yeah.
Egypt. I don't think he's hanging out. I don't know. I don't know who he's hanging out. He's definitely not hanging out with Carcela. I could tell you that much. And I could tell you that he's probably hanging out with the ladies for sure. So I think that's. I wish we had Chris here to discuss this. I'm sure that he would have quite a defense for Taraabt.
When I used to play, I used to go out every night before games.
And that never bothered me, except when I had to track back. I hated tracking back. I don't know why I tracked back. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't defend anything. A 3-year-old could mag me. Chris, we miss you, buddy. All right. I think that's about it. At Steve Santos 6, at Benfica Podcast, at 10CO10 is where you can find Cristiano on Twitter and all of us on Twitter. planetbenfica.co.uk. Their forums, Mario, M. Dot, another shout out. That's 2 weeks in a row. Shout out to Mario. He's good peeps. And also, Kevin, I know that that your significant other is going to give birth soon. So we wishing you a lot of luck on that aspect. Anything else, Steve, that we need to bring up?
Can't say that I can think of anything else.
Yeah. Next week, we're hoping to have Mr. Patrick Hendrick with us.
Patrick Kendrick. Must you get his name wrong every week? There's a K in the last name, not just because the Twitter handle doesn't have it there.
God damn it. Anyway, I'll get it right one of these days. Just like Taraabt's name, I'll get it right.
I can't spell it, so it's okay.
It's TAR 3 A's BT.
Okay, if you say so.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot for checking this out, and you guys that got a chance to catch us on YouTube. The video will be up later. Don't forget to check out our audio version, where we'll have the halftime headlines and also the interview with Rafael Ramos, which, like I said, I had a chance to catch up with him after the game against the New York Red Bulls here in New Jersey, and I had a few words with him. So don't forget to catch that. That'll be on the audio version of the podcast, available on iTunes, RSS feed, or Stitcher Radio. And that's pretty much it. So as I've said, Benfica plays tomorrow, like everyone knows. Next week we'll be back. We'll break down the Atletico Madrid game. Hopefully it'll be a good breakdown and not the very negative one. And Uniao da Madeira game we'll break down, and we'll look ahead to the next game Benfica has, which I think next week, I think there's international break next week, if I'm not mistaken, Steve.
After the Union game, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I got it right this time. Nice. All right, thanks everybody. Steve, always a pleasure, bro.
You too, man. Take care.
See ya.